Partial quotient division is what we've been working on this week, and it's basically just another way to divide instead of long division. Long division can be very confusing and hard to fluently understand and to consistently actually do correct. So partial quotient division actually takes a little bit longer, but it is a safer way to do it, and it makes a little more sense. So when we have the problem 3,480 divided by 24, what we're going to do is we're going to use this 24 and we're going to chip away at this 3,480 until we eventually come to 0 or we come to a remainder. The first step we like to do in partial quotient division is take this 24 and we want to multiply it by some real simple numbers to make it bigger so we can chip away at a bigger number, but also we want something simple enough that we can just do in our head nice and quickly. Those numbers we like to use are 10, 100, and 1,000. These numbers are super easy because they're powers of 10 and they're really nice to multiply. So when I'm multiplying 24 times 10, I know that I can just write 24 and then count the zeros. So 10 has 1 0. I put 1 0 on the end. That answer is 240. 24 times 100 would be 2,400. 24 times 1,000 would be 24,000. So these are my three choices right now to start. When doing partial quotient division, you can truly use whatever numbers you want as long as they are correct. But these are the nice simple ones we like to start out with. So when I'm looking at 3,480, I want to pick my largest option without going over. And clearly that one is going to be 24 times 100 is 2,400. So what I do is I'm going to subtract 2,400. And over here, this is very important about neatness. Right next to it, I'm going to write 24 times 100, and I'm going to circle this 100 because this is what I'm multiplying by. This is actually my partial quotient. When I add these partial quotients up, it's going to give me my quotient, which is my answer in a division problem. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract, and I have 1,080 left. Now, what you do with the next step is completely up to you. If you're not feeling too great about this, then you're going to want to keep it simple. But if you want to challenge yourself, here's what you can look at. I have 1,080 left. 24,000 is obviously too big. Now my first option, 2,400, is also too big. So I'm going to start subtracting 240 at a time. Now, if you want to make that a little bit trickier on yourself and you want to make it one less step, you can think about what would be double of this, what would be half of this, whatever would make this easier for you to do. But for this example, we are just going to stick with 240. So over here, once again, I'm going to write 24 times 10 this time. I'm going to subtract 240. I'm focusing on being neat and having everything lined up. And then I subtract. And I have 840 left. Now I'm going to show you an example of what we can do by doubling it. So if I have 24 times 10 equals 240, and I want to know, this number right here, 240, it's really not that close to this. I feel like in the back of my head, I can probably pick something better. So I don't want to waste my time just subtracting 240, 240, 240. So what we're learning in class is to think about halves and think about doubles. So if I want to think about a double, since I want to make this bigger, I know that double of 10 would be 20. So now I'm thinking about, instead of 24 times 10, I'm thinking about 24 times 20. Now, I'm not asking you to do that in your head, but you can simply think about what you already solved. I know that 24 times 10 is 240, so if I double that equation, I'm also going to double the answer. So in my head, if I double this, I know that I would get 480. Now, 480 is a better option. It takes away a bigger chunk. So over here, I'm going to write 24 times 20. And like I said, this is completely optional. If you want to chip away at it nice and slowly, be my guest. But if you want to make it a little bit faster, be more efficient, this is an example of how you could do that. 24 times 20 is 480. I subtract that. And I have 360 left over. Now this 360 is a little bit closer to my 240, so I'm going to go back to that. 24 times 10 240, subtract that, and I have 120 left. Now we can either have a bunch of steps or we can get creative with it. I could just choose 24 times 1, which is 24. I could just keep chipping away with my original number, minus 24, minus 24, minus 24, until I get there, or I can think outside the box a little bit. So instead of doubling 24, now let's look at half. We know that half of 10 is 5, so then half of 240 would be 120. So now, instead of doing all those 24s, I've used what I already know to take away a bigger chunk. So I'm going to write 24 times 5 over here, subtract 120, and then I get to 0. If the number down here is less than the number I started with and I can no longer subtract, then that is my remainder. But since this is 0, I have no remainder. The last thing I do is add up my partial quotients: 100, 110, 130, 140, 145. My answer is 145.